Over the next several weeks, the American International Podcast will be exploring some of the films that AIP presented exclusively in their television packages as part of their American International Television Division. Many of these films were imported from foreign markets, others were made specifically to be included as part of their television packages, and a few were picked up from other domestic distributors following their theatrical runs. In this series, we will be looking at films that are associated with the AIP as a result of being presented in these television packages.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I know they're going to catch me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me!
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's...
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're going to make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the American International Podcast. My name is Jeff Markin.
And I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And on this episode, we continue our look at films released directly to television via American International Television. For this episode, we watched Majin, the Monster of Terror from 1968.
Majin, or Daimajin as it's known, was directed by Kimiyoshi Yasuda, written by Tesuro Yoshida, and produced by Masaichi Nagata for Daiei Studios.
Majin, the Monster of Terror stars Miwa Takada as Kozasa Hanabusa, Yoshihiko Aoyama as Tadafumi Hanabusa, Jun Fujimaki as Kogenta Sarumaru, Ryûtarô Gomi as Samansuke Oodate, Ryûzô Shimada as Tadakiyo Hanabusa, Tatsuo Endô as Gunjurô Inugami, Shôsaku Sugiyama as Yusuke Kajiura.
It also stars Chikara Hashimoto as Hanzo Mitogi, and in a dual role he also plays Majin, Saburo Date as Ippi Chiuma, Otami Tsukimiya as Shinobu, the Shrine Maiden, Keiko Kayama as Haruno, Aigoro Ono as Gosaku, Gen Kimura as Mosuke, Takibo's dad, Shizuhiro Deguchi as Takibo, Hideki Ninomiya as Tadafumi as a boy, and Masako Morishito as young Kozasa. Majin the Monster of Terror is one of a trilogy of movies, all made at the same time, but with different directors.
Though made at the same time, the three films were released a year apart from each other, and domestically here in America, AIP picked up the first two films and placed them in various television packages. This film, Majin the Monster of Terror, was released as part of the 15 new science fiction package, which began airing in 1968.
So the movie opens. Storm, fire, title, credits. 3 blind mice plays in a minor key. There's a big, big eye that shrinks and disappears. Then a wolf bays in a foggy forest.
Most of the plant life seems to be dead in this forest. We find ourselves in a cottage. A woman is singing, but is interrupted by a loud crash. There are a couple of men in this cottage as well. One of the men says that the sound is footsteps, and it's Majin trying to break free from the mountain in which he is imprisoned.
All this commotion wakes up the baby, starts crying. Then, from outside, a neighbor calls. Everyone is going to pray that Majin does not get out of where he's imprisoned. Somewhere in Wolf Canyon, I think. So the family exits and joins the prayer mob already in progress to the temple. And then we cut to the other side of the tracks.
We're in what they call a castle, belonging to a samurai, Tadakiyo Hanabusa, and he is watching from his home as the lineup of villagers go by. His son interrupts him and asks if it's true that Majin is going to break out of the mountain. Tadakiyo laughs at his stupid son and reminds him that he is the son of a samurai and shouldn't fear such things.
Tadakiyo insists that their god will keep Majin imprisoned, and that all good gods are samurai. We haven't mentioned it yet, but Shino is the god's name, and he is in a constant struggle to keep Majin from getting out.
The boy recognizes that Shino is the one that they talk to in their prayers.
And he wonders if this is really true, and Kogenta the samurai comes up behind him and croaks, "That's right."
Across the room, we see the boy's sister, Kozasa, and she's snuggled up against her mother because she's frightened by all the noise that everyone keeps telling her is this giant thing waking up and getting ready to trample everybody.
Her mom tells her that she's going to be okay. She seems a little skeptical, so she gives her a little toy.
It's kind of like a little ornament. It looks like a stick with tassels on each end.
Apparently that's going to keep her safe. However, the moment that it's in her hands, there's another huge crash, and the little girl snuggles back into her mom. That's a little more comforting than the tiny ornament.
Outside, there are a few samurai standing around, and one asks if it's true that Majin is stuck in the mountain. So there's really not a lot of faith or belief in their god, it seems, within this group of people.
I don't blame them, really, because there's a lot of shaking going on. Stuff is falling off the shelves. It does sound like really loud footsteps. And close, because it's affecting where they live, is kicking up dust and scaring everybody. So yeah, I can see why they would be concerned. Even if they had faith, it's always good to have you can trust, but also verify.
One of the other samurais chastises him and says that of course this is all true, and he reminds him that he himself has been to the temple and that he himself had seen the footprints. So there is some physical evidence to back up this legend.
Oh, that's novel. Now we're with the priestess. This is Shinobu. She's the maiden of the temple. It's hard for me to tell what good this is because there's just a bunch of people dancing around the fire wearing costumes. But I'm sure it's better than, well, if it's not better than nothing, at least it's not hurting anything.
I'm sure it's ritualistic dancing and they believe it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
I'm not so sure about that because things are about to get worse. Back at the Hanabusa house, Tadakiyo sends his right-hand man, Simonowski, to go amongst the people to try to calm them all down. He decides he'll take his right-hand man, Gunjurô, with him. But when they go outside, it's apparent that they have a different agenda.
It seems Samansuke Oodate is planning a coup. Gunjurô tells him it's a good thing that Majin chose tonight to break out of his prison, and Samansuke says that he'll have to thank Majin.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen. So they decide they're going to storm the castle. Then we go back to the ceremony where some sort of giant wicker man thing gets set alight, but it's not an effigy and there's nobody inside it.
So Samansuke and Gunjurô go to the castle, where Samansuke announces that everything here now belongs to him.
All your Beisar belong to us.
There is some resistance, and Samansuke is reminded that he came there in poverty and was taken in by a kind master, and why betray him? Samansuke says he feels neither hatred nor loyalty, and the castle is now his. He has men ready to surround the castle and destroy all who oppose, beginning with the Lord Tadakiyo Hanabusa.
So the battle begins. With everyone fighting, Kogenta breaks away to go to the children's room. He wants to get Kozasa and Tadafumi, the prince and princess, the heck out of there. But he was followed. He has to fight off all of Gunjuro's men after Gunjurô declares his intent to kill the entire household.
But there are still other members of this household sympathetic to the Hanabusa family, and they fight with Gunjuro's men, allowing Kogenta to escape with the children.
Now we're back with the Lord and Lady Hanabusa, and unfortunately they're about to die in each other's arms. Their last words are both expressing worry for their children.
Outside, Kogenta is trying to get the children to safety. He's working on untying a horse, but Tadafumi keeps asking dumb questions like, where's father? And why can't I stay with father? And why won't you let me go to my father? In the grand tradition of children in Japanese monster movies, he's extremely annoying. Now some of Kogenta's men, the loyalists, are there. They're inside a building, and outside is Gunjurô and all his men surrounding them. Kogenta's men see that there's really no hope for escape for them. Gunjuro's men is setting the building on fire. So they tell Kogenta that they're going to die fighting so he can get away with the children. So one of them takes off on horseback as a decoy. Gunjurô and his men chase him, allowing Kogenta and the children to escape on foot.
Having lost the children, Gunjuro's men need a new project. So they go to the prayer ceremony and tell everyone that it's not happening. Shinobu, the priestess, is not having this, though. She demands that they get off the holy ground. But the invaders tell Shinobu that there will be no more prayers, no more ceremonies at the shrine. Everyone must go home now, forever. Shinobu warns him that they are doing something dangerous. This ritual is keeping Majin in his place, but the men don't care, and they start trashing everything. Shinobu asks her god Shino to forgive them and protect them all.
Gunjurô and his men are not impressed, though. They tell Shinobu to go home and warn her that there shall be no more gatherings without the permission of the new lord, Samansuke.
The next day, Samansuke and Gunjurô are poking through the ashes and rubble of the Hanabusa estate. There's no sign of the kids, and their bodies weren't found.
One of Samanasuke's men, Yusuke, tells him that most of the Hanabusas were killed, and the others must have perished in the fire. But Samansuke doesn't believe this. He sends his men out to hunt for them.
He believes that since they're children, they couldn't have gotten far. And in fact, Kogenta is barely in moments ahead of them. They barely have time to hide in some bushes as Samanasuke's men ride past. After all is clear, Kogenta takes them to Shinobu's quarters.
Shinobu is surprised and relieved to see them, as she'd heard about what had happened. Kogenta and Shinobu agree that Samanasuke's men will never stop looking for them, Shinobu says that they will have to keep the children in hiding. Kogenta asks if she has a place in mind, but before she can answer, they hear the sound of approaching horses. Gunjurô and a bunch of Samanasuke's men break into Shinobu's residence to search for them. Shinobu tells them that this is a sacred place and that their filth does not belong here. Nevertheless, they're going to search for the missing Hanabusas, and they take all of 3 seconds to do so before giving up. They obviously aren't there.
They tell Shinobu that if she does try to shelter the children, they will behead her.
Then one of the men says that he sees someone running over the hill, so they all go off in pursuit of that person.
Later, we see Shinobu walking with the 3 fugitives. Somehow they got away. They managed to elude their pursuers and didn't get captured. But now they're going to Majin's mountain to hide out in the shrine. Even though it's forbidden, they really have no other choice, and she's going to pray that Shino will forgive them for doing this. As
they approach, Tadafumi sees the statue sitting on the top of a waterfall, and he asks about the statue. This is Majin, imprisoned in the rock. They pray to Shino for protection as they pass by the statue. Then they take refuge in a shrine with a great view of the Majin statue.
It's right out the window. And then time passes. A significant amount of time, because now Kozasa and Tadafumi are all grown up, or they're at least teenagers. And Kogenta is still with them, protecting them, and they live an idyllic and peaceful life. Unlike the villagers who are slaving away down below.
The people are being forced to work while being whipped.
Some of the slaves are pulling something heavy, and one of them drops to the ground. While he's getting whipped, another man decides to try and help him. But as he's trying to render aid, this man's young son finds him with some bad news. His mother is really sick, but Taki's dad isn't allowed to go. As we'll find out later, nobody can leave until the fort is finished. Taki ends up going with his grandfather, who, like I said, cannot leave either. He tells Taki to go home and take care of his mother as best he can, so he runs off. Now we're in the infirmary where Taki's dad is with the old man who's resting. Some people break free. They come through the infirmary and ask if anyone there is still loyal to the Hanabusas. Taki's dad helps them find a rope and rappel down the mountain so they can get away. But then Gunjuro's men come in. They're looking for the escapees and they want to find out who helped them. They put the blame on Taki's dad, but the man in the sickbed decides that he can take the fall for this, and he ends up taking the sword as well. He dies happily for something. He dies before he can tell us.
So back at the shrine, Shinobu is telling Lord Tadafumi and Kogenta that the people in the village are being forced to work. And Tadafumi can't believe this. He wants to go into the village to try to stop this insanity. But Shinobu begs him not to go. It could mean that all these years of hiding were for naught. So Kogenta will be allowed to go on a reconnaissance mission himself. As these plans are being made, the earth rumbles. The god in the mountain is angry and won't let this cruelty continue. He will pass judgment on Samanasuke.
Then we briefly see Samanasuke, who's discussing with his men, and they decide that they're all ready to fight if anyone, I guess they mean Tadafumi, appears. The next scene, we see Kogenta in disguise as a peasant poaching pheasant. Samanasuke's men spot him and steal his dinner, 2 pheasants, and they're going to let him go. But once Gojira rides up, the jig is up. He immediately IDs Kogenta and tells his men to get him. They start shooting.
With little other choice, Kogenta pulls a knife and lunges at Gunjurô, but he's outnumbered and retreats as the guns come out. Kogenta dives to the ground as they shoot at him, and he escapes through the forest.
Unfortunately, he was hit, though, in the leg.
The gunshots can be heard in the village. Taki's father is pulling up a bundle of stones with a rope to the upper level of the fort they're building, but he drops it when he's startled by the gunshots as Kogenta runs by, chased by his pursuers.
One of those pursuers looks up and sees Taki's dad and asks that he be put under arrest. Then the men chase down Kogenta, who just can't run anymore.
Kogenta crawls behind a big rock to hide. He's checking his leg as Samanasuke's men catch up to him and surround him.
As Taki's dad is hauled off to prison, Taki runs up to tell him that Taki's mom has died. Taki's dad is shocked, but the man has no time for his grief. They drag him off and swat Taki out of the way.
So Taki no longer has a mother, has an absentee father, obviously nobody to cut and comb his hair.
Not that he ever did. So that was a really great plan on Kogenta's part. Everything worked out perfectly. Back up in the shrine, Kozasa and Tadafumi are wondering where Kogenta might be. He didn't come home.
Perhaps something went wrong.
Indeed, something did go wrong, because he's now being tortured by Samanasuke's men with a red-hot brazier. They're trying to get him to tell where the children are, but even though he's scarred from stem to stern, he says nothing.
Meanwhile, Shinobu is meditating at her place when she hears someone approaching. She goes outside and sees that it's Taki.
Oh, yay.
She tells him that he shouldn't be out this close to the mountain, and Taki tells her that he's come to pray for his father. He explains that his father was arrested for helping a stranger, and that it was all for nothing because the stranger was arrested anyway.
So now having filled in Shinobu, he demands to pray for his father. And this was a point where I was like, wow, the dubbing in this is really terrible. He sounds so womanly. I started thinking of him as a Karen, just demanding that he see the manager of the temple.
Shinobu asks Taki if he got the stranger's name, and he tells her that it was Kogenta.
That's not really a big surprise. Who else would it be?
During this conversation, Tadafumi is lurking nearby. He's overheard the whole thing, then he steals off.
Oh, another great plan is beginning.
Shinobu tells Taki that Shino will grant his wish and that he should go on home. Taki is reluctant, but Shinobu tells him this is Majin's mountain and he will be angry with them. She goes back inside and we see that Taki has decided not to listen and he heads back toward the mountain.
Tadafumi wastes no time getting to town, and just as he overheard, Kogenta is hanging by a pole. Even though Kogenta can't hear him, Tadafumi tells him to bear the pain until tonight. I guess that's when the plan will spring into action, and Kogenta has no choice but to agree.
Meanwhile, as Taki is headed to the shrine to pray, his imagination is getting the better of him as he's walking alone in the forest. He sees ghosts, he's grabbed by skeleton hands, and animal mouths chase him. It's actually really well done. The ghosts are kind of creepy as they're just flying around. And the skeleton hand, there's a really great shot where it's grabbing him, and it kind of goes on a focus for a second. And when it comes back into focus, you can see it's just a tree branch.
Right, but his imagination's playing tricks on him. I thought the ghosts looked like the ghosts that came out of the Ark in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, they kind of look like the background ghosts in Disney's Haunted Mansion.
Ring wraiths.
Anyway, Taki does finally make it to the shrine where he finds Kozasa.
He assumes that she's the goddess and starts praying to her. She tells him to stop. She's just a regular person. He asks who she is, but she can't say. So he just assumes that she's another supplicant like he is.
That night, Tadafumi sets about rescuing Kogenta. He makes his way to where the prisoner is hanging and loosens the rope, bringing him to the ground.
You won't be surprised to hear that he does not do this unobserved. Gunjuro's men approach just as Tadafumi has lowered the man to the ground. This is when Tadafumi realizes that that's not Kogenta hanging there. He doesn't know it's Taki's dad, but of course we do. Gunjurô promises to kill Tadafumi and Kogenta tomorrow.
He notes that Tadafumi hasn't changed much.
Hasn't changed much. He's an entirely different person.
Meanwhile, Kozasa and Taki have gone back down to Shinobu's. Shinobu asks Kozasa where her brother is, and Kozasa replies that he's gone into the village and hasn't returned yet. Shinobu tells her that they were waiting for Tadafumi in the village, and now she's going to have to go down there to speak with Samansuke.
So she does. She visits Samansuke while he's getting a little rifle practice in. She's there to tell him all about Shino and Majin. Samansuke has been evil to his people, and he's profiting from their suffering through taxes. She claims that Shino is going to punish him, but Samansuke isn't convinced. He's not superstitious at all. She says that she herself will summon Shino. So he decides, well, I'll just kill you now then.
Since Samansuke isn't a superstitious man, he decides to test her faith. He pulls on his gun and asks Shinobu if she believes her faith will protect her. He pulls the trigger and laughs. He didn't put powder in the gun, or else she'd be dead. She once again implores him to accept what she says is true.
He threatens to destroy the statue of the god himself. That will discourage any remaining Hanabusa followers. And Shinobu says that if he does that, it will destroy all of us.
She once again implores him to accept what she says is true, and Samansuke draws a sword and slashes at Shinobu. She falls, then gets up and starts invoking the god Shino. Samansuke swings the sword again, and Shinobu stands up.
She curses him with a painful eternal death at the hands of the god.
Then a third slash brings her down. Samansuke commands that Gunjurô take men to the statue and destroy the image.
One of his men, Yusuke, tries to protest, but he gets shut down pretty fast.
So from Shinobu's house, Kozasa and Taki see Gunjurô in his detail as they head toward the statue. They watch from a distance as Gunjurô and company find themselves lost with no path to take. Then one of the men steps on something.
It's the little toy that we saw in the beginning of the movie, the one Kosasa's mother gave her to calm her down. They look at it and realize that this little toy couldn't belong to a peasant. There must be someone royal up here. So Gunjurô tells his men to find the owner of the ornament.
It is then that Kozasa is spotted. The men capture Taki, and Gunjurô accuses Kozasa of being the princess, and Kozasa says she doesn't know who he's talking about. She also says she doesn't know Shinobu. Gunjurô says that if what she's saying is true, these words will be meaningless to her. Tadafumi and Kogenta have been captured and will be executed tomorrow. She reacts, and Gunjurô knows he has the right person.
And then he adds a little salt to the wound by mentioning that Shinobu is dead as well. They order Kozasa to take them to the statue of Majin, but she refuses.
Then one of the men recognizes Taki as the boy who was always coming into town, and they assume that he has been running information for Tadafumi and Kozasa. Kozasa says the boy hasn't been, and Gunjurô orders Taki be killed unless Kozasa can help them reach the god of the mountain. Kozasa agrees to this, if only to spare Taki's life.
Another bad decision. So she agrees, and they trudge onward with Taki and Kozasa in tow. They spot the statue at the top of the mountain, and then a few seconds later, they're in striking distance of the giant statue.
They start hammering away at it, but it's not having any effect.
Kozasa begs them to stop, but they don't.
So they bring out the spike. The spike is placed on the forehead of the statue, and they start hammering it in, but they stop when the wound, I guess, starts to bleed.
Yeah, this actually horrifies them, and that's kind of weird. One thing that I found in my research for this movie is that the concept of Majin and the spike through the head might have actually been inspired by a creature of Jewish mysticism called a golem. The golem is a day creature that requires the word emet, E-M-E-T, the Hebrew word for truth, to be written on its forehead in order to be activated. But to deactivate it, you have to take the first letter off the E, which changes it to met, which is the Hebrew word for death, after which the golem will crumble to pieces. So there is sort of a connection here, and we'll see more of that later in the movie.
Then lightning strikes, and the earth shakes. The men scream over and over again in a loop. It's kind of like a Wilhelm scream. It's a little off. It's like a, ah! And they play it over and over and over again, and it gets to be kind of amusing.
The men are falling down the side of the mountain.
Ah!
Gunjurô gets eaten by a chasm.
Ah!
It opens up and closes back on his body. I have, as Wilhelm screams, fill the air. And somehow Taki ends up treed like a loose plastic grocery bag. And we see him from Kosasa's point of view. He's just wrapped around a tree limb. No idea how he got there.
We briefly cut away to the castle, where one of Samanosuke's men, Yusuke, says that Shinobu was right, and that they have now angered the gods. Samansuke tells him to shut up, and he asks for his dinner because he's hungry.
In prison, Kogenta apologizes to Tadafumi, who for some reason is in a very good mood because Shino will not forsake us. And he gets a well-deserved side-eye from Kogenta at that. So far, Shino hasn't done jack for anybody. But that's about to change.
We go back to the mountainside, and now things are calm. Kozasa must have been knocked unconscious or fainted or something, because she wakes up and looks at the now-defaced image of Majin. Then she hears Taki cry out. He's no longer in the tree, and she asks him how he got down. He's not sure. He says the rope broke and he fell to the ground, uninjured, and that Shino must have helped him. Kozasa falls to her knees to pray to Shino. She says she's not good at praying. She doesn't really know how, but she's going to give this a shot anyway.
She wants him to save her brother and Kogenta, and as she's praying, the palace soldiers are coming to the prison to take Tadafumi and Kogenta to the execution site. Now it's execution day, where the townspeople are putting up not quite crosses. There's a place to stand as well. But it's obvious that this is where Tadafumi and Kogenta are meant to meet their end.
Back at the mountainside, Kozasa asks Shino what she must do. Does she need to offer her life?
She does cry, too. That is important.
She decides that offering her life must be what she must do, so she tries to jump into the waterfall, but Taki is holding her back. Then the earth starts rumbling again, and they all back away.
Hey, whatever she did worked.
It did, because Majin takes a step forward, and then he wipes the rock from his eyes. He kind of passes his hand over his face, and it dissolves the rock that was covering his face, and now we get to see his lovely brown eyes and green skin.
I thought it was blue, but what do I know? So whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, we don't quite know yet. At the execution site, Samanosuke gives Tadafumi a hard time, but says at least he's not going to die alone. And then our favorite little cherub, Taki, runs up and warns everyone that Majin is coming. Do you think they believe him, Jeff?
No, I don't think they believe him. I don't even know why.
How did he get down so fast?
Yeah, they travel so much faster coming back.
We never mentioned
to the
how
village.
big this mountain is. This thing is huge. This is like a real Rocky Mountain.
And you can't see it from the village, so it's got to be far. And they keep traveling there.
Like there's an elevator.
And it takes time to get there, but getting back to the village seems to take no time at all.
No, it's like there's a tram down from the mountain and it only takes moments. So, of course, they don't believe him. Samansuke orders that Taki be captured, and Kozasa is also down the mountain. She got down fast as well.
And she tells Taki to run.
Samansuke orders that the execution proceed, and then a giant black cloud moves across the sky.
There's a flash of light, and then suddenly, Majin is here.
Maybe that's how Taki and Kozasa got down so fast.
So Majin attacks indiscriminately. There are men in a tower at Majin's eye level. When he turns toward them, they duck. Then he just smashes the tower, sending the men to the ground.
He methodically takes out all the soldiers, and he plucks the crosses out of the ground.
Some of the braver men try to attack. Many of them are squished under Majin's feet.
Yeah, he's not super huge like Godzilla, but he's, I would say, maybe 4 times as tall as a person. I mean, he's as tall as, goes up to the 2nd story. That's about how tall he is of a building.
So during all the chaos, Tadafumi, Kogenta, and Kazana have been reunited.
Someone untied them, I guess.
And meanwhile, people are still trying to fight back against Majin. They use catapults, which the rocks just kind of thunk right off of him.
As if they were styrofoam.
And they push burning carts toward him, trying to stop him with fire.
Yeah, at this point, Samansuke has decided to leg it, but the soldiers are still there trying to fight, to find something, anything that will help. They're not having any luck, though. But all is not well for Samansuke.
He's trying to hide in this castle, but Majin finds him, grabs him, and pulls him out.
This is probably the funniest part of the movie.
Then he carries him across the village, and there's just a great shot where we see Tadafumi, Kogenta, and Masasa just watch as Samansuke flies past them in Majin's hand.
But we only see Samansuke at first. His head sort of flies into view, and then we realize, oh yeah, he's being carried.
His feet are kicking behind because he's not giving up willingly. He is putting up a struggle.
Not that it matters.
But then Majin presses Samansuke against the wall of Samanasuke's still unfinished fort, pulls a spike from his forehead, and skewers and pins Samansuke to the wall, killing him.
It's like he was a butterfly in a collection.
The people look on with horror. The expressions on some of these people's faces is they just cannot believe what they're seeing.
They should be kind of relieved, though, because I don't think anybody liked him. Not the villagers, anyway.
But now, Majin is headed toward the village.
Oh, we can't have that, because he's still in his smash everything mode.
Tadafumi runs out to try to stop Majin, telling him that these people are innocent. Majin looks down at him and then continues on his way.
He almost gives a little shrug there. Taki tries to help, and he almost gets squished. But then the only person that can get through to Majin, Kozasa, throws herself over him, and Majin stops. And she cries a little more. I think her tears, like I said, actually are the key here. She offers to die to save the villagers, and that's probably crucial too.
Majin once again does his little face wipe trick, and he turns back into a statue. We see the flash of light shoot back off toward the mountain.
Towards the sequel. And then the statue just crumbles to bits.
Tadafumi tells his sister that it's over, that Kosasa's tears stop Majin. My tears? Kozasa asks, fainting. And that seems like a good place to end the movie.
If it is indeed over. Which for these people it is. So Majin is kind of new to us. We didn't really know the backstory, if it's a real thing or just invented for the movie. What the movie is called in Japan is Daimajin. And that means giant devil or giant demon god in Japanese, even though they don't really call him that in the movie.
And research also brought out that Daimajin was originally planned to be a foe of Gamera in a film, Gamera vs. the Space Iceman, but unfortunately that film was never made.
The art director was named Akira Naito, and he recruited a sculptor named Shozo Okamoto to design Daimajin. And the design was based on Neo statues, and unfortunately I don't know what that means. But what they did was mix in various idols and statues from around the world. And I guess the face was meant to be green, even though I saw it as blue, because that was Naito's suggestion. But the director had another funny suggestion, and that Kimiyoshi Yasuda said that the statue of Majin be given a Kirk Douglas-like cleft in his chin. I thought that was pretty funny. They were going to do a lot with stop motion, too, but that didn't work out. It looked pretty terrible. So they ended up using a man in a suit. And Majin was played by, as we said in the beginning, Chikaro Hashimoto. And they left his eyes visible so he could express emotion.
Yeah, he played another character in this as well, so we got to see his face too. And he also played two characters, one being Majin in the sequel. Daiei Film approached filmmaker Ishiro Honda about directing a remake of Daimajin in 1984. While Honda was reportedly interested, the project never went beyond the talking stage. Daiei tried again in 1998 with actor Steven Seagal to set to star, but again, that never happened.
Can you imagine? To me, I think he would make the perfect Majin, but I can't imagine him being like a samurai, or to me, he would just be the statue and stomping everything. And then they tried again for a reboot in 2006 with director Takashi Miike.
That would have been interesting. Takashi Miike directed films like Audition.
Oh, wow.
And The Happiness of the Katakuris, which I love.
I love that too. That's a fantastic movie.
So that would have been interesting to see his take on this.
And while that never happened, the character of Daimajin did appear in Miike's 2021 film, The Great Yokai War Guardians. Maybe we should watch that. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't love it either. To me, it's just a middling film, and I
really enjoyed this movie both times we watched it. The basic story itself has been told many times. It's a traditional story of an evil overlord comes and overcomes the rulers, and the younger generation has to hide until they come of age so they can come back and reclaim the throne.
Well, that may be so, Jeff, but I think that they're so dumb. That's what really bothered me about the movie. Everything that they did failed, and in fact made things worse. They have no plan. They have no stealth. They have no weapons. They come down. They immediately get spotted and captured. They basically got Taki in trouble and Taki's dad in trouble.
And that's how the story differs from most of those others, because there's usually a plan involved with retaking the throne. But in this, they just kind of bumble into wherever they're going. And if it wasn't for their religion actually having some weight to it, they would all have been killed, and it would have been a horrible place for the villagers forever after.
But it was a horrible place for the villagers for a very long time because their god did nothing. They prayed and prayed and prayed, and they suffered, and countless people must have died. And the hero of the movie, the title character, is a literal deus ex machina who comes in and smashes up everything and then disappears. He's in the movie for, I guess it's half an hour, but it feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't really understand their relationship with Majin, because they put on that this is like this evil being that has been imprisoned by their god.
Right. They have to keep him in check.
And I guess it's shown a little bit when he goes after the village at the end.
Right. He's an indiscriminate stomper of all things.
But he has a soft spot for Kozasa.
Well, what if she wasn't around? And they'd be all screwed.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm going to give this one an A. On a 5-point scale, it'll probably be a 4 out of 5, but I round up, so this one gets an A.
I would give it over 3, but under 4, so maybe a I+, but I definitely don't want to give it an A. I think it could have been better. Maybe Takashi Miike would do a much better job of keeping the story more on track, having competent heroes that we could get behind. To me, the most interesting characters in this movie were the bad guys. And Samansuke. At least whatever he tried to do, he was successful at it till the very end.
I don't know. It took him a really long time to build a fort.
Well, he wasn't building it.
Well, no, but he had everybody working basically 24 hours a day, it seemed, working on this thing.
How well do you work after not eating and working for 24 hours a day? You know, people are going to be dying left and right. He was the example of work harder, not smarter. But as long as he didn't get his hands dirty, I'm sure he didn't care.
Even so, I think it should have taken less than 10 years to build a fort.
We don't know how long they were hiding. We don't know how old the kids were when they went in, but they came back as 19 and like 16. So we assume that it was 8, 9 years, maybe 10.
No less than 6.
No less than 6. I had a hard time also keeping the characters straight in this movie. The first time I had no clue whatsoever. If we hadn't watched it the way we did the second time, slowing it down, stopping, talking about who that was and what they just did, I think I would have been lost the second time around too.
No, it's hard because all those samurais have the same weird haircut where they shave the top of their heads and they have a ponytail.
And all the peasants look alike. They have uncombed hair and ragged clothes.
But anyway, that's what we have on Majin, the Monster of Terror. This has been the American International Podcast. And until next week, I'm Jeff Markin.
And I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And stay tuned for the next adventure. Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.